Well, let me introduce our last speaker as the most entertaining in many ways, and I think doing some profound work that we need to know about. Greg Palast, listen to this endorsement. Catherine Harris called Greg Palast twisted and maniacal. How in the world did he get her to say that? That's the best credential I can imagine. In Britain, he's called the most important investigative reporter of our time for his work for the BBC, The Guardian, and Rolling Stone. Greg Palast is the author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy and Armed Madhouse, and his latest film is Palast Investigates from 8 Mile to the Amazon on the trail of financial marauders, which you'll sign after the program. He's fun, he's interesting, he's an investigative journalist. None of you have ever met one, so here's your chance to see what they really look like. Please welcome Greg Palast.
I got to keep my hat down. God. Wow. I'm applauding you. Wow. Thank you for staying. So I got to pull out your thermometers and see if you're done yet. Thank you. Ed Garvey, can we give this guy a big up? Ed Garvey in the house. You know, we heard earlier John Nichols, Jim Hightower. I've looked under that hat. Yep, he's Texan. Big thanks to those joining us today. Next there, air conditioners listening on Wart. Okay. Matt Pasquarello, my producer, is out there. I want you to know the people who actually make my films. He's out there with our films. I'll sign them after. Great folks here. God. My God. Just 2 years ago when I was here, there was a young guy down in Chicago, young black man. You know, let's think about what's happened these 2 years. A young black man who inhaled, no less. Right? Guy whose name we hardly know. And as a result of what could only be called an uprising, a national uprising, a movement carried him to Washington. Now I can stand here today, 2 years later, when he said, yes, we can. 2 years later, we can say, so why didn't we? Yes, we can. But no, we didn't. Not yet. Now, okay, let me explain. We need a little entomology here. I don't know how many of you studied the insects of North America, but the largest on the continent is called Billy Tozin. He is the chief lobbyist of something called Pharma, which is the organization of legal drug lords. He's the godfather, Billy Tozin. And during the campaign, Barack Obama ran an ad called Billy, in which he said, believe it or not, there were secret negotiations between the drug companies with this guy, Billy Tozin, who'd been writing as a congressman the laws on pricing for drugs and Medicare. That won't happen when I'm president. He said, quote, that's an example of the same old game playing in Washington. I don't want to learn how to play the game better. I want to put an end to the game. So, you know, cockroaches can withstand a nuclear blast. They can certainly withstand an election. As an investigative reporter, I went in to the Oval Office and looked under the rug. And who was there scampering under the Oval Office rug? Billy! Why, it's Billy. And there was this under the rug. It's very tiny because it's in cockroach print. It's a memo. I kid you not. This is the real thing, discovered by my colleague Ryan Grimm. and it says, Pharma deal. Deal? I thought we weren't making deals. We weren't playing games. Okay. And it says that there is a commitment by the drug lords of pharma to give an $80 billion discount on our drugs, legal drugs, too bad. $80 billion. Wait. Oh, that's nice. But, and it says right here, I'm reading from this, in exchange, the White House agreed to, wait a minute, the White House agreed? Wait, there's something wrong. That can't be right. Because I can tell you, someone named Obama, he was a candidate for president, he said, unlike the prior regime, unlike the unelected junta that we had before, after the elections, we are going to do all these negotiations on C-SPAN. That was candidate Obama. Candidate Obama said, quote, the American people will be able to watch these negotiations with the drug companies on C-SPAN. That's a quote. Openness, said the candidate. Transparency, said the candidate Obama. So what's this? He said, you will hold me accountable. Here's the account. Now, let's do some accounting. I'm up for it. How about you? Take out your pencils. You know, because they, instead of denying it and saying, oh no, oh we made a mistake. Stop that cockroach. No. They said, yeah, the drug companies are giving us $80 billion. Big spenders. Santa thousand. Right? Oh, wait a minute. $80 billion. Now, I'm not only an investigative reporter, I unfortunately used to be an economist, and so the reporter asked the economist, 80 billion of what? 80 billion of what? So I went into the data of the Health and Human Services Department. Turns out we're going to be spending for big pharma's drugs over the next 10 years, 3.6 trillion, that's $1 trillion for these characters. Now, you take 80 billion divided by 3.6 trillion, carry the 4 times 3. If you didn't go to George Bush's No Child Behind Left program, you would know that that's 2.2%. 2.2%. That's what we got from the cockroach under the Oval Office rug in a secret deal violating every promise of the campaign. 2%. Now, hey, that's still 80 billion. In my neighborhood, that's real money. Or is it? Or is it? Let me look at the insect print here. Real close. This is really the document. This is really the deal. Kid you not. In fact, if you come back to my stand later, I'll show it to you. Among the things it says is that in return for the 80 billion, it says the White House agreed to, number one, oppose importation. Now that can't be. That can't be because candidate Obama said, quote, we'll tell the drug companies, okay, that we will allow re-importation of drugs from Canada because we can get the drugs cheap there. Drugs we make in the United States, sent to Canada, we can buy them back cheap, right? Now, but here it says, he will now oppose importation. What else? What else? What else is going on here? What has the White House agreed to? There's 4 items. I won't go through every one. But how about this one? Oppose repeal of non-interference. Now that's a fancy one. What do the bugs mean by that? What do the bugs mean by that, the drug bugs? Well, non-interference, it has to do with, that's the fancy name for the law that prohibits the government from bargaining for drugs. Okay. Now, and getting a bulk discount. Now, what does that mean? The Veterans Administration gets a bulk discount, 30 to 40%. 30 to 40%, you know, because like, as I mentioned last night, you buy a 24 aspirin and blister pack, it costs a couple bucks at the airport.